Early exchange, shaping policy, advancing development.
Let's look at what's happening in Nigeria specifically. We're talking about the 0.5% new levy introduced by the central bank. Recently, the CBN directed banks to begin charging 0.5% cybersecurity levy on transactions. Now, this is to be remitted to the National Cybersecurity Fund to be administered by the Office of the National Security Advisor. But Nigerians have your thoughts on this, and we also have our guest who's going to look at this new charge vis-a-vis order charges by banks for transactions. Joining us live from Canada this morning virtually is Dr. Osaze Iyoha, who is an economist and, of course, a business analyst. Good morning, Dr. Osaze. Good to see you.
Good morning, Blessing. How are you?
Great. I understand that it's still quite very early in the morning in Canada, about 3 a.m. So,
Yeah, 1 a.m. specifically. Yeah, time change. There are time changes depending on the province you are. So it's 1 a.m.
all right. I know that it's still quite early, and so we appreciate your commitment to the show. Talking about the 0.5% new levy introduced by the CBN, which is called the Cybersecurity Levy. What are your thoughts on it? But look at what the CBN says. It's to be channeled to, it's to be remitted to the Cybersecurity Fund administered by the Office of the National Security Advisor. What are your thoughts on it?
Yeah, I think it's laudable. It's anyway. It depends on what side of the coin, as we say, that you are trying to assess or evaluate the let's say the usefulness, because it's almost overwhelming the number of taxes that have been imposed on Nigerians and Nigerian companies at the same time. So for me, this policy brings two things to fore. First of all, there's the legalities, there's the legal side to it, and there's the economic side to it. So from the legal side to it, which I want to start from, it's I think sometimes our governments are in a rush to do things without necessarily going through the procedures, without necessarily following the laid down regulations, which they themselves also put in place. I think there's a law. I'm not a lawyer, but there's a law that says every income, basic economics, even 100 level economics, 200 level, that says there's just one fund that all income of the federal government has to be put in, which is the Consolidated Revenue Fund. And to the best of my knowledge, I don't think that's part of the act or the constitution has been reviewed. It says all funds according to the federal government or the national government has to be put in the CRF, Consolidated Revenue Fund. So now this for me seems like a breach of our own very constitution, which is the grand norm of the people. So I don't know how they plan to go around that, because I don't know. I think the lawyers might have to give an interpretation, because anything that's not based on legality, that there's no legal standing about it just can't stand. It's just about talking about the foundations, because we've had issues, and I think that's where the trust issue now comes. Many people will feel there have been so much, because you say it's going to be managed by the Office of National Security Advisor. What's the policy template around that? People are going to be, you're going to be taking 0.5% of my transfers that I make. It means everybody is involved. This has to do with the private companies, private companies, government companies, and government corporations. I, as an individual, so everybody is a player. It means I have a stake in it. So in building the policy framework, wasn't there supposed to be what do you call an administrative sort of committee that would administer the use of these funds? There should have been representative of probably the labor, private companies, individuals, private citizens, so that we see how this money is going. Because to just put it in the Office of National, who is the Office of National Security Advisor? So I think ab initio, there's so many, and I think that's where we have a problem. We rush over policies. So now talking about the 5% levy, sometimes we wonder what's the Nigerian government really doing at this point? Because you have abdicated your role on fuel subsidy. I know you've always known my stand about fuel subsidy in the last 1, 2 years. I've always been a staunch advocate of removal of fuel subsidy. And for me, that was probably one of the reasons why because I have never in my life imagined stepping out of the country. But for me, I was a very strong advocate about removal of retaining fuel subsidy. Every protest, every protest against it, I was always the first to be there because you ask yourself, what's the government's role now? You've removed fuel subsidy, you're not subsidized. First of all, you were supposed to provide for whatever reasons you were not able to do that. Your refineries are shut down. All the enabling environment for private refineries to come in, they were all abdicated by the federal government. Then you now remove the first subsidy. You've almost removed subsidy on education. You so health is everybody is doing its own health, finding its own health solutions. Almost everybody is sinking boreholes in the house. So what's the federal government doing? I'm asking this because the essence of this 5% levy is that the government, it's just because government wants money to show up. They need money to fight cybercrime. That's the whole essence. They want to raise money to fight cybercrime, to develop their cyber crime fighting infrastructure and so on. So you ask, what's the federal government now doing? If to fight cybercrime, to develop your cybercrime infrastructure, you are taking 5% or 0.5%, 0.5% from me, from my transfers. There's an allocation for the armed forces. Every year we see billions of naira, trillions allocated to armed forces, to all the forces generally. This NSA has a very large chunk. I think I didn't check the last time, but billions of naira is allocated, is voted for that office. So you add this, that's ombudsman. There's so much ambiguity about it. How is it going? So you add this to the allocation, to the statutory allocation that the 2024 budget has already given to the Office of the Security Advisor, to the armed forces, to the police, to the EFCC. So you ask, what are all these monies? Where is the accountability? You want to now add this burden to the Nigerian people. This is a situation, this is a current times in the economy now when the economy is going through very, very tough times. Hello? Hello?
We can hear you clearly.
Hello? Okay, yeah, yes. These are times when the economy, yeah, these are trying times for the economy right now. Citizens are going through intense inflation. I think this is the highest in the last 4, 5, 6 years that we've had 32 points, about 33%. So Nigerians are going through very tough times. So generally, in economics, periods like this are times when, according to the Keynes, then suggested that periods like this, government should even give out handouts. He went to the extent of saying that John Maynard Keynes, that government should at this point, times during tough times like this, employ people in the morning, dig a hole, and in the afternoon you employ another set of people to cover the hole. It's just a way of giving people funds. Look at what happened in America after when Obama came, when there was we can't call this a recession, but these are times when inflation is high, exchange rate is going up again. The last time, okay, so we are not talking about exchange rate, but generally I think, as I said, there are just two sides to it, which aren't clear. First of all, what's the legal side to it? What part of the constitution has been amended to allow funds, according to the federal government, to now go to any other account other than the CRF? That's one side to it. Then the other side to it is the fact that adding this 0.5% to Nigerians at a point where you already have votes, monies in their trillions, their billions allocated to each offices already, to the NSC, to the armed forces. Every unit of the armed forces has already been allocated. So adding this it's for me, it's so much burden on the people. And when you talk about cybersecurity infrastructure, what are the existing infrastructures? There was a time when Nigeria launched Nigerian Sat1, that's some years ago. And I think a few either a year or two later, we heard that the satellite went missing in space. So just before so all these bring credibility and trust issues. So it's just ambiguous to say you want to use it to boost up your cybercrime infrastructure. What is the roadmap? What is the policy around it? What and what allocations would these be made? So I think there's so much point that the government has to clear before you bring in this policy. And it's rushed to 2 weeks. You've not what's the sensitization around it? There's so much to talk about it. But for me, I think it's ill-timed. One, then it's not even it's something that should be reversed completely. Yeah.
Around it. You've raised question about the legality of this new levy. Well, the levy is mandated by the recently enacted Cybercrime Prohibition Prevention Amendment Act of 2024, and is to be paid by the
Yeah.
initiator of any transaction.
Yeah.
And so I hand you now
Yeah,
to
that's the
Femi, who is
legality.
my
Yeah,
co-anchor. He has some thoughts, some questions to probe your thoughts on other issues around this new levy. I just wanted to speak about the legality.
All right, glad you. Once
okay.
again. Still talking about the legality, in fact, it's important to state that this came from the Cybersecurity Act, which was first introduced in 2015. So it's a matter of the
Yeah.
law, which was where this level was introduced. But my question to you is, why do you think this levy is being largely resisted by Nigerians? Could it be as a result of lack of awareness, lack of education, or the fact that people are looking at the economic reality, or the timing makes it wrong? Because it's something that is enshrined in the Cybersecurity Act.
Yeah, all right, thanks. As I said, I think there's an act to it. Not I think there's an act to it. The Cybersecurity Act provides for this generally it was meant to shore up our cybersecurity against criminals and so on who use our financial systems to flip money around. My home point to it is what part of the there's still that part of the constitution that says every fund of the federal government should be paid into the CLF. Yeah, so if there's an amendment to that, I think that should be amended first before this act comes into effect, saying that we'll now pay it to another account. But that's okay. As I said, it's not me. It's not in my place. The lawyers are there to give it. But coming to the issue of of Nigerians seeing it as a body, of course you expect that. As I said, there's so much charges being. I was looking at the last companies taxes that companies have to pay. As at the last check, I thought there are about 8 or 9 taxes that companies in Nigeria have to pay. And there's a way we try to downplay these taxes. The last time when there was an increase in electricity and tariffs, and government gave explanations that, oh, it's not about Nigerians, it's the companies who would pay, the companies, we are not taxing poor Nigerians. And there's an indirect side to tax. There is no company who is going to bear tax liability. It will never happen. They always do what we call tax incidents in Nigeria. They will transfer it. You tax the companies, they transfer it to the individual. And I'm sure you noticed recently increase in consumer goods. And it's very simple. You put increased tariff on these companies, they'll put it in their prices and transfer it to consumers. And you see there has been an increase in prices of goods and services really recently. So I was checking the last, as I said, taxes that are paid by companies. You have companies paying CIT. And just for the records, Nigerian corporations or companies pay the second largest, or rather second highest taxes in the world. They pay company income tax, they pay education tax fund. Education tax fund was 2% in 2021. It was increased to 2.5% in 2022. And 2023, the Finance Act also has increased to 3%. So companies are paying 3% of their profit on education tax fund. Then there was a recent, the last Finance Act also, there was an introduction of 5% or 0.5% that companies should pay for goods that are being imported into Nigeria. Every good being imported into Nigeria, every eligible good, no matter what it is, from toothpick to cars to anything, they have to pay 0.5% to government. And what is that for? For government to pay their dues, international dues. You know, the dues they pay to African Development Bank, to UN, so every international obligation in terms of dues, annual dues of the federal government is to be funded by 0.5% of every good that is imported into the country. So an importer of any good coming to the country has to pay 0.5% to government for government to use to pay its international dues. That was the last Finance Act. So all these taxes I just mentioned are going to be transferred to the people. There's no trader who is going to import and he will put it in his prices. So that's the concern of Nigerians, that each of these taxes that are being imposed or introduced is taken away from their purchasing power. You get the point. And my problem exactly with this cybersecurity levy is that there's no cap on it. You know, like the electronic money transfer, which is another discussion also that was introduced in 2022, placed I think 50 naira on every transaction above 10,000 naira. So you see, there's a cap on that. You know, so it means if I transfer 1 million naira, I'll be charged 50 naira. If I transfer 10,000, I'll be charged 50. If I transfer 50 million, I'll be charged 50. There's sort of a cap on that. But this is percentage. You know, so it means if I'm transferring 1 million, for example, I want to buy a car. I want to buy, remember, no brand, any car. I want to buy a car. The car is 5 million watts. So it means I'm going to be charged how much? I'm going to charge 25,000, right? 25,000. That's huge. You know, so and my problem from so I think that's the point of view of Nigerians. The fact that this is an extra, you are taking electronic money transfer already. You are taking stamp duty. So it means if I'm going to be transferring, for example, let me not go too big, so 1 million, so that it's not like I'm talking from an elitic point of view, just 10,000, which every trader would probably not every individual will probably do. You want to pay 10,000 for fuel, you want to pay. It means when I'm sending 10,000, I'm transferring 10,000, for example, I'm going to be paying 50 naira stamp duty. Hope there's a stamp duty. And you know, stamp duty is paid by both the receiver and the giver. So it means I'll pay 50 naira for stamp duty. I'll pay NIP charge. There's a NIP charge, the NIPs, you know, the National Nigerian Interbank, they take 25 naira. So on that 10,000, I'll be charged 25 naira for a NIP charge. VAT of that NIP charge, 1.8 naira. I'll be charged 15 naira for stamp duty. Then I'll also be charged 5,000 okay, so 0.5% of 10,000, 15 naira too for cybersecurity and levy. So I'm paying almost 150, 180 naira on just a transfer of 10,000 naira. So you see, I think that's the criticism of most Nigerians. But for me, from an economic point of view, I thought there should have been a cap, not a percentage-based levy. If at all you have to fund your cybersecurity infrastructure from my own money, then I thought there should be a cap, probably 50 naira base fee or 100 naira base fee, rather than this percent, because it has a danger of hurting this financial inclusion drive that the CBN or the Nigerian Authority financial sector has been pushing. You know, it got to the high during the Emefiele administration, when cash was literally stock hoarded from Nigerians, kept because they wanted, the whole idea or excuse was that they wanted to push financial inclusion. They wanted us to do more of transfers and so on. So you've migrated people into the um online or electronic transfer system, and now you're almost penalizing Nigerians almost every day, sort of, for carrying out online transactions, because this is almost now pushing. I've heard many people say, oh, they will go back to cash and so on, because you are taking an electronic money transfer, for transfer electronic money levy, which was introduced in 2022. On top of the transfer I'm making, then you're going to be taking this cybersecurity levy too. So I think it's just too much for Nigerians. If the government wants to show up its cybersecurity infrastructure to fight it, I think there are other sources that government can make money for. See, probably one will keep discussing would have further insights into it. But I think I've heard government officials say it's because government needs money. But of course, we know government. There are so many. There are so many. I'm trying to be diplomatic here so that we are not giving it out. But I think there are so many ways government can show its finances to be able to fund projects like this with ease and effortlessly. There's oil crime. There's oil theft going on. We're almost about 40-50% of our oil is being stolen. OPEC has given us a quota of 2.1, 2.2 million barrels every day. We have not done beyond. I think the best we did this year has been 1.4 million. It's fluctuating between 1.2, 1.4. So we know what the obvious leakages are. There's too much oil theft going on. Gold is selling more than crude oil right now. Gold is at its height now in terms of sale. We have enormous gold reserves. Mining is taking place illegally in states like Zamfara or Osun State. You have private individuals filtering gold out of the country with their private jets. These are sources of funds that government should be making money from. That should be cutting down on those wastages and would have enough funds to fund our security. So it's almost like you've a father who has failed to plan during his working days when he was his peak period when he was making so much money working in an oil firm. You're not cutting that. You didn't cut down on your spending. You were using your money to play bets. You're using your money to smoke. You're using your money to drink. Then you now come home and say, "Well, my children, people have to contribute money. We have to build a fence around this house. We have to." Then you now start taxing the children to put fence around your house, put a gate. So I think that's just the similarity, the closest similarity content I can put in this context. So government should cut down the wastages and not have to tax the already taxed citizens to fund its business. That's my point about it.
Pointed out that it's business, but let's look at whose business is this. First, where are the monies deposited? The monies on which electronic transfers are made. It's bank customers' monies domiciled in banks. So whose responsibility should it be to put up cybersecurity for monies kept in custody? That's one. And then two, there are exemptions for this levy. There are types of transactions that are not included in this levy. There's loan repayment, salary repayment, and certain government payments are not included to be charged this cybersecurity levy. Now, what are your thoughts on the exemptions and the responsibility of providing cybersecurity? Whose responsibility is this?
Yes, so I think that's another part of the discussion, which is very interesting too. Now, I was just saying that government should fund its crime, its fight. But I think also it brings to question our banking system. What are our banks really? For me, I think I was just discussing with somebody some days ago, and I was saying banking system in Nigeria is just narrow. It's just one side of the entire banking sector that our banks are carrying out. They are more like deposit money banks. They just collect deposit. And that's the much I know, because when you look at banking in advanced countries, just not even, yeah, in other countries, let me put it that way. Banking goes beyond just collecting deposit. I think that's just about 15% of what the banks are doing. In other countries, you have banks who, I don't know of any Nigerian bank that gives its customers credit cards. I don't know. I would probably be open to learning about that. Banks are the major functions of bank are to fund, are to give credit to customers. They are to fund. I know that's a point. That's one of the reasons why you have corruption festering in the country in Nigeria, because almost everything you have to do it has to be cash and carry. You want to buy a car, it's almost cash and carry business. You want to build a house, you're struggling, and you see one source, one way of getting money. You see there's one sharp way, corruption. You put your hands into it because you have to until you build your house, you can't move into your but it's not so in other countries. Banks fund gigantic projects. The banks fund you give your mortgage, you pay over probably 20, 30 years. So what are our banks doing? I thought another way around it should also be that this cybercrime levy or whatever building infrastructure should have been from the bank's profits. Banks make enormous profits. So I think it's their responsibility. It's the responsibility both I know a rebuttal will be that crime is for everybody. We all are responsible for fighting crime. But when it all has to do with crime in the financial sector, which is the cyber crime, I think banks should have been responsible for it. It could easily have been. It could just have been an internal finance system discussion between CBN and the banks. Yeah, probably 0.5% of bank profit, and it would have been fine. Yeah, so I think the responsibility of fighting crime in the financial sector, it's largely the responsibility of government and the financial player. Yeah, because even in other countries, I have a friend in UK who was saying she found out that money was debited from her account, which she knew nothing about, and she went to make a report to the bank, and the bank paid her money following day. They told her that it would be refunded to her following day, and it was sent back to her, and they said they will fight, they will follow it up. So they will follow up with the criminals or whoever did the transfer and get it back. But in the meantime, they immediately credited her. So that's what banking is about. And I think that example goes to show that it's the responsibility of the financial sector. I have given you my money. I've put my money in trust for you. So you've insured my funds. You are supposed to fight or protect the whole infrastructure around the financial sector. It's supposed to be the responsibility of the financial sector. Oh, I think that's very clear enough. Then on the second question of sorry, I'm trying to recall what the second question was about.
From the levy, such as loan repayments, salaries, and
Yeah, yeah,
some government payments are exempted from this
yeah,
levy. What are your thoughts on the exemptions?
exactly. Yeah, so how do you so that's why I also talked about the rush about so what's the policy framework around that? How do you determine salary? So it just depends on me. So I could send 50,000 for example, and so what do how do you know it's salary? So does it who the responsibility of determining salary, is it me who when I'm sending it I now put in quotes inverted comma salary. So probably, and if at all you are talking of salary, then what do you talk about wages? Nigeria is a daily wage country. You have people who work daily, who who go and do, for example, I'm to pay a bricklayer who has come to work in my house. You pay them monthly, you pay them daily. Some people, bricklayers have come to plaster my house and to pay him 10,000 naira for the day. So how do you want to go around? That's a wage. Yes, do not salary per month because salary in Nigeria is as a monthly. So this is a wage I have to pay a carpenter who has come to work on my door. So does that mean I'm paying him his salary? I'll be deducted cyber security levy. So that's the entire policy framework which I thought should have been well disseminated to Nigerians to go around it. So I am trying to imagine. I checked it was just a paper, 1 page or 2 page circular from the CBN. And I asked these questions too. I couldn't get um, a clear clarity around how that works. I think the best would be so you now put in so if everybody now puts in inverted comma salary, then I don't know how successful the whole and it's one thing for you to put in inverted comma salary And it's one thing for the 5.5% not to be charged because we would have to wait. I think it will be, they said it would commence in a week or 2 weeks time for commercial banks. So by the time would work, see how it works. So if I'm sending 50 million or 1 million naira and I put in salary, so let's see, put in inverted commas salary. So if it's still charged, then I think there will be um so many backlashes and so many things which the government will have to fix, which the CBN will have. So let's hope that in the next 2 weeks or 1 week when commercial banks start, and they say it would be implemented starting with the commercial. So we'll see if there will be further clarifications on how that works. Yeah. There's a loan repayment, salaries, then government establishment transfers. So that's what is on paper. So the way around it would have to be explained. I don't know if there will now be a back end conversation between customers and their banks saying, "Oh, so this money is for salaries," and all the bottlenecks around it. So those are the clarifications which I stated that should have been made by the CBN. But for me, I think there's so much that the CBN still needs to do. One, which is the point you just pointed out. How do you know these transactions which you have called exemptions? How is it supposed to be effected? How do we customers, with just a simple narration, suffice and exempt us from that levy? That's one. Then two, how is this funds going to be administered? I think everybody in this sense now is a major player. Private citizens, the companies, private companies, our players. So do we have to be, is there going to be a board? Is there going to be a committee for managing these funds? Because, so I think those 2 points have to be clarified by the CBN in the next coming days, because it's very, very important. We've had so much funds being collected, and most times you don't know how it goes, because this conversation will just last for the next 2, 3 weeks and everybody will move on. And we'll just have money. Just for context, in 2023, the NIPS fund, yeah, that was moved within the country was put at 600 trillion naira transfers. Just 2023. NIPS, just for context, is the sixth largest so there is sixth largest funds that was in the world. I don't know how to put it. The Nigerian interbank scheme, the transfers that take place in a year, Nigeria ranks as the sixth largest in the world in terms of hugest fund, ahead of even US in terms of transfer funds, ahead of US, sixth largest in the world in terms of transfer transactions that we do in the world, sixth largest. Just last year, as I said, 2020, 600 trillion in total was transferred within the council. Just do your mathematics. 0.5% of that. That's enormous funds. We are talking about that should be around 300 billion naira. If I'm right, I would have to punch our calculators together. So 600 trillion, 0.5%. That's so much significant funds to just be put in one office without representatives of contributors being able to decide how that fund is going to be allocated, to decide how that fund is going to be used, to decide and look into the proper management of the fund. So I think these are very interesting. These are very, very significant questions that should be asked, because they've almost taken Nigerians as people that you just a one-way communication line. You just tell us something and we discuss about it and we'll move forward.
I'd like you to make references to maybe templates or examples in other nations, maybe in better climes, where the issue of this security or this kind of levy being imposed or being deducted. For instance, you are in Canada. How is the approach to this kind of cybersecurity levy being carried out? Are there lessons where Nigerians could learn from? What kind of approach, what kind of template? How is it being deducted in a place like Canada, for instance? How can Nigeria benefit from that kind of example?
Yeah, so fighting cybercrime The whole cybercrime fight, as I earlier said, it's something that is carried out by banks. Yeah, it's the banking sector. It's the responsibility of each bank. Each bank finds a way to protect its cybercrime, its cyber infrastructure. That's just how it works. Every bank has the responsibility of um, protecting their cyber infrastructure is solely the responsibility of each bank. And that's why, as I mentioned, I gave the example of a friend who made a report of transactions that he found in her account, and the bank made refunds immediately and took up the fight for. So it doesn't matter when they would get a refund. But that simple example I gave just shows that they've taken responsibility for any actions that takes place. And that's what is customer loyal. Because when you open an account in a bank, you've entered the contract, and it's simple. And the contract is saying that we are going to ensure the safekeeping of your funds. And so whatever happens within the space of that time, it's completely the sole responsibility of the banks. It's straightforward. That's what happens here. So I don't know. I don't know of any probably other African countries. That's what I would have liked to know. But in most of the advanced nations, it's the sole responsibility of each of the financial sector. Yeah.
A thing like this, where the NSA, the National Security Advisor, is to be the one who administrates over this fund, do you think NIDA should have been in synergy with NIDA, since NIDA is in charge of ICT and cybersecurity would involve ICT?
Yeah, they should all have been players. And that's why I said except there are some information that we don't know, which the government will have to tell us about. If they also are there's a committee, either a tripartite or a dual committee that's working with the NSA's office. So that's the point I was trying to make, that it shouldn't be something that's solely at the discretion of the NSA's office or the NSA. I don't want to say the NSA because I'm not sure he, but from what the provision says, if it's in his office, it means he will be the one who will be signing off on any transaction because he is the head of that office. So um, that's just so your point just is there should be other players involved, the NICDA and even SEC and every other person who has to deal in the financial sector should be involved. And that's where I asked for clarity. The CBN should come with clarity. I think major players we should have there should be intense dialogue. It might not necessarily be a town hall, but there should be intense dialogue to tell us which government agencies and so on are going to together manage these funds. Because the whole essence of taking the funds, this levy is that we shore up our cybercrime infrastructure. So all these players which you mentioned, and as well as we, the contributors, should be part of the disbursements management of this fund. So it points to the fact again that I said it doesn't have to just be rushed. We should see a policy framework around it. I know, and I think that's where it differentiates us from the rest of the world. In the rest of the world, you have if policy framework. I keep using the word policy framework. There has to be a policy which I can hold. I have a copy of it. I should have a copy either online or something, which I look and say, oh, these are the people managing it. These are the people who are in charge of it. The responsibility of it is that this, so you get this accountability. This and this is what we intend um, to spend the money on. What do we need it for? Do we have to launch a new satellite into the orbit, two or three more? What's the infrastructure generally that you want to use it to fight? Yeah, because so also are you saying that after 2 weeks time, when the deduction of this fund comes into place, whenever there's I notice transactions that are going on in my account or general financial crime, does it mean you have now insured it, what happens afterwards? Does that mean I will no longer be responsible? Because currently what we have is you go to the bank, tell them so and so has you've noticed this and this in your account. The bank just tells you, and we told you you should be protecting your PIN, do two-stage, and they almost leave it to yourself to fight out, to see out your period. So are they now saying that after 2 weeks implementation of this levy, where do I go to report? What's the report process? Does the burden of any financial crime, does it now move to, is it taken off me? And generally, cybercrime has to also do with um, transfer of funds from, and you know, cybercrime is not just a national thing. It involves a multiplicity of countries because you have crimes between swindling funds between Nigeria and Ghana, between Nigeria and US. It's something that's an international transaction. So it's not even something that is supposed to be so as I said, I don't know. There's so much clarity. I'm trying to run my head around how it's going to work. But as I said, it's cybercrime is not a national fight. We know that it's an international fight that goes on between countries and so on. Because you have someone, it's even our simple what we call Yahoo. It's all cybercrime.
Okay,
So when
Okay, let's wrap up with these. It is obvious that the CBN is determined to kick off this in 2 weeks' time, and the office of the NSA is in position to manage this fund. Let's talk about administration of this fund now and the right kind of investment. Now, how would you expect that this fund should be managed and transparency brought into this? Then, what kind of infrastructure should this be invested on? As we wrap up.
okay, okay. So as I said, the administration, they have to bring in all players. They have to be representative of citizens. They have to be representative of the private sector. They have to be representative of NIGDA. They have to be representative of the manufacturing sector. Every player, at least the major players from each sector, the labor has to be on a committee to manage those funds. So that has to do with the administration. Then in terms of the infrastructure, I think they know. I think the CBN and the NSA's office, they have the best idea of what infrastructure they will need. Yeah, because as I said, it's an international, cybercrime is an international occurrence, an international activity. So if you are just fighting it in a clone, you'd almost be blinking in darkness. It's like blinking in darkness because when you fight, it's an international, they have to work with other countries. So I think when you talk of infrastructure, it has to be IT. It's IT based. So so that it's an international. So I don't know how much discussions, how much conversations are going on with countries in the world. So it's something that I also need clarity on. What infrastructures are they lacking? So we have to know first what is the infrastructure deficit in the IT sector in the current for Nigeria, which they need to up their power with so that they are the same power or the same level with other countries, because it's an international fight. It's not a national fight. So all those will determine. So they first need to give us their infrastructural deficit. What do they think they don't have? Then that will determine what they need to spend these monies on. I think all that should have been done before they even put that 0.5%, so that you are not taking below what you need to procure these infrastructure, or you are not taking above. So I don't know. I just want to believe that they've done their homework on all that before they impose the 5% levy. But back to what I said, I think there has to be a cap. Just making it a percentage collection, it's too much for Nigerians. There has to be a cap, either 50 naira or 100 naira cap, just like the electronic money levy. But making it a percentage is too much. And as I said, 600 trillion last year, 0.5% is enormous.
We're from Canada talking about the new 0.5% cybersecurity levy introduced by the CBN to take effect 2 weeks from now. We thank you for your time. We understand we have to pull you literally out of bed to be part of the show, and we appreciate your sacrifice and time on the show.
Thank you very much.
Early exchange, shaping policy, advancing development.